Hi, baby boomer fans. We are Jackie and Janine, the Pfeiffer sisters, and love to talk about the 1950s, inviting you to reminisce with us as we explore experiences of that decade.
We chronicled the distinct memories of our childhood in our book, While the Windmill Watched, a slice of rural America in the 1950s, which takes you on a notably historic journey through that often forgotten decade. We also want to hear about your experiences during the 1950s. We will feature guests whose special stories of that decade will bring to mind magical moments of reflection, some with tears, some with smiles, but above all, a good dose of laughter.
We would like you to chat with us as we bring to mind the sights and sounds so familiar to that time in history. Grab your favorite malt or Green River. Make sure you are wide awake and get ready to be inspired about the 1950s. Welcome to the 1950s Fun Chat. Greetings. So happy to have you join us. Yes. And Jackie's in Washington and I'm in Iowa. And so we are all different places in this country at different times of the year and the day and who knows what. But thanks to technology, here we are. And same way with our guests. They come from all over the United States, some from even beyond who had lived a life outside of this country. And so we tell the stories of the 1950s. Doesn't matter where you grew up. That's what's fun about the 1950s Fun Chat. And today, Jackie, we have a guest who is from a Midwestern gal. I like to say the Great Plains, from the Great Plains states. We're from North Dakota, of course, in the Great Plains, and she hails from Oklahoma. But before we start visiting with her, what can you tell us about our book and our program?
Sorry about that little whoops. Well, first of all, I want to do some housekeeping, and that is I'd like to welcome all of our viewers, and I would like you to peruse your screen, please. Note the bottom screen, there is a purple banner, and running around across the bottom is www.whilethewindmillwatched.com. That is our website where you may go to find all sorts of information about the book, the vendors, the authors, and this 1950s Fun Chat. If you happen to have missed all the previous ones from like a year and 4 months, you may go right there and look at them either in partially or in total. Next thing, please look in your upper right-hand corner. You'll see a picture of our beautiful book, While the Windmill Watched. And in front, on the front cover, which wraps around the back, is a beautiful North Dakota sunset. And silhouetted, of course, but with two little girls and the windmill. One more item to look upon in that little book, and that is the little white spot, which might be kind of hard to read. But that little white spot is a special little emblem. It says National Independent Press Award in the regional nonfiction category as the distinguished favorite. So this was bestowed upon the book in April of 2020, 1 year after April 2021, when the first book was first published. So on with our guest today. She is Mary Lou Reisdorf Peck. She arrived in Elks. Reisdorf, yes.
Reisdorf.
Okay, depending upon where you are in the United States, it's pronounced one way or the other. Anyway, she arrived in Elk City, Oklahoma in 1957. She lived just north of the town on a 160-acre farm that raised beef cattle, dairy cattle, swine, chickens, and cotton. Her dad worked for Southwestern Bell as a lineman, and her mom worked at home. Her early playmate was a Shetland pony. Her brother arrived in 1960 to continue that title of being her playmate. Her mom made all of their clothes from feed sacks, so the siblings sported many matching garments. Mary and her family moved to Oklahoma City in 1963, where she lived until high school graduation, followed by attendance at Oklahoma State University. She married Mary Peck in 1978, and they moved to Sentinel in 1979 and continue to reside there. So far, so good, Mary?
So far.
Centennial.
Sounds familiar.
Centennial. Okay, they have a daughter, a son.
Sentinel. Sentinel, you got it.
Sentinel, what's right? Okay.
Yeah.
They have 3 grandchildren also. I'm sure the loves of their lives. Mary earned a Bachelor of Science in a Bachelor of Science in Animal Science and Master's in Agricultural Education from Oklahoma State University. Now she retired from Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service, where she served 24 years as a 4-H youth extension educator. This career was followed by working 9 years for the Southwestern Oklahoma Development Authority as a business development and marketing associate. My, that's a long title. You'll have to tell us about that. The Pecks now live in Sentinel, Oklahoma, where they have a cow calf operation. Together, they have created the Ag Youth magazine. It's a pretty popular magazine in that area in the Midwest, which they have published for 35 years. They recently purchased the local newspaper. It sounds as though the Sentinel leader, it sounds as though you just didn't think you were busy enough.
That's right.
All right. Well, anyway, Mary, we welcome you to the Fun Chat.
Well, thank you.
Hi,
Glad to be
Mary.
here. Hello.
So we understand that we're going to go back to the 50s because this is the 1950s Fun Chat.
Definitely.
So we understand you lived through experiencing a tornado in your life.
Yeah, we did.
Yes. Well, tell us about that event.
I don't know what year that was. I was little, and we had a big old cellar. And so we were in the cellar when it hit. Of course, in all those stories you hear about the sounds like a train and the air pressure being so high and stuff, it's all true. It's all true. Sound like it was coming apart. And so, of course, when we come out, we were fortunate, and just the front part of our house was taken off. But I think, and I shared with you that, the windows were blown in. And so I went in my room, and my little Chatty Cathy doll was there all covered in glass. And I all the rubble, and I pulled her little string, and she gurgled at me. And so
what was she supposed to say?
I don't remember. I guess she talked,
Yeah.
But I just remember that was, forget the house. My doll was hurt,
She was just speechless.
And to be honest, I don't know where we went after that or how the house got rebuilt or anything. I don't remember any of that. I was too little, I guess. But, of course, over the years, if you live in Oklahoma, that's one of the things that you better have a good handle on, are tornadoes and things like that. So it kind of got me started off on beware, they're real.
Yes.
Right.
Have you experienced a tornado in your adult life then?
Yes. Well, not like that, but as a 4-H agent, they need to train. They actually need to put tornado safety into the extension training if you're in Oklahoma, because about 3 times I had to deal with 4-Hers and tornadoes, and of course you have to. And they're getting really good at predicting where they're going to be, and et cetera, and all that kind of stuff. So over the years, it got a little better. But, when you're responsible for other people's children, it's you better err on the side of caution. So, some that came really close and things like that. One went over our house. We weren't there, or the house we lived in right before the one we have now. And it must have lifted it up because all of our throw rugs, everything was on the north side of the house. It had blown up to of course, we lost the tops of our trees and things like that. So lost our activity center in town. So, of course, I had my 4-Hers back in 2001, I think it was. We had to plant a dumb tree I'm sorry, in case they're listening. A tree was donated to Area Extension County. And we had to plant this thing. So we were down at Sentinel planting it on the walking trail when this huge storm hit, and it blew away 500 homes in Cordell, blew away the fairgrounds where we would have been with the team leaders, So the silly old tree that I was gritching about so hard, actually probably there's no telling, because there's nowhere to go, if you have kids on the fairgrounds. And so so just little moments like that. Of course, you see them off in a distance. Do you usually have
houses have basements, or do you just plan to have a storm cellar?
Storm shelters. In 2006, We applied with the ESRI with GPS mapping software. We got a $150,000 grant there to map the storm shelters, public storm shelters in Ouachita County. And we have three public storm shelters. Because one of the things I want to know, if I was in Cordell with the kids at the fair, where was I supposed to take them? Well, nowhere. Just let you know, nowhere.
Yes,
but three. Well,
that's confidence.
But the reason for that is because so many private homeowners have their own storm shelters that and we have if you live in Oklahoma, you need to have a storm shelter. Just that simple.
It makes sense.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Sure.
Can we go back to the 50s?
Go ahead.
Yes.
When Jackie introduced you and talked about your playmate, of course, I'm always very interested in these pony playmates because I had one too, but he wasn't a very nice playmate.
Well,
so I want to know about your playmate.
I got my pony. His name was Blackie. And I got him for my second birthday from my grandfather. He brought him down. And he had a saddle and everything. And it was a Hopalong Cassidy saddle.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Lucky you.
I know. And anyways, so, and I look back now, I watch Larry and I with the grandkids around the horses and stuff. I guess my parents didn't like me or something because I don't remember a day that I wasn't on that horse. From the time I was 2. And I mean, we rode all over the country. I rode over to my aunt's house, which is about 9-10 miles away.
Oh my.
Yeah. I mean, me and Blackie, we were a thing, and so, and he was ornery. He liked to kill chickens. He would catch the chickens and drown them in the tanks.
Oh my goodness.
He would run the cattle through the gates. And so he would get punished. My father would put him out in the middle of the feeding pens, right out in the middle, so I couldn't play with him, and and I would sit up there and cry, wanting my pony back. And so he could open gates, which is not a good thing for a horse to know.
No. Oh. So what did you find? Did you have a positive relationship with him, or was he?
Oh yeah, he was my horse. He was my horse, me and him were buddies. Now, when my little brother would try to ride him, Blackie would run as fast as he could to the nearest pond and stand in it with David on it. So, yeah, we were. And I had him until I was about, he moved to the city with us, but we had to keep him. My dad bought 80 acres out north of the city, so he stayed out there, and then Anyway, we finally gave him to a young man, a little boy, and it had a big acreage situation there in the city. When I was about 6th grade, probably, I had to let him go. I had a bigger horse then. But anyway, Blackie could open, Doug had mentioned Blackie could open gates. So about the 3rd time we had to go get him out of the dog pound there. The people, I don't know what happened to Blackie. I was just told he was taken to a farm far away from the city.
Yeah.
So knowing, being an adult now, I'm not sure what happened to the horse.
Yes. And that's something you just don't need to know.
And by the city, you mean Oklahoma City.
I mean Oklahoma City,
yep.
Sorry.
Yep. That's okay. That's okay. Yep.
All right. So before you were in the city, yes, you were picking cotton with your mother.
Well, I wasn't. I was playing, but my mom. Yeah, we had cotton right there and stuff. Of course, my mom grew up picking cotton. My grandparents. They lived. My mother's gone now, so I wish I'd asked more questions back there. But for a while, they lived in a dugout. For a while, they lived in a tent. They lived wherever Grandpa was working, whoever he's working for, they would live in that housing type situation. And Grandpa was able to save up enough money to buy a general store in the late 40s, And so, as a child, I didn't appreciate that information, like I do now. Like, wow, I don't think I have that much gumption in me at all. Yes. And he always worked and made sure that his kids had shoes for the first day of school. And so anyway, but they picked cotton, and then they would go out in Colorado and they'd pick peaches and things like that. And they got to can all the bad peaches and that type of thing. Now, that was way before my time, but I remember going out with Mom. She would pick the cotton out in front of the house, and we'd have I love playing with those little cotton balls, and I have to watch out because I'm still living cotton country, and I don't know if my farming neighbors would appreciate me picking their little bowls of cotton and playing with them.
Did your mom ever do anything with that cotton then
No.
to turn it into a product?
No, she didn't.
A product?
No, she, you just have that big cotton bag, and you fill that up, and I guess she turned it in. I don't know. I guess I did. I thought she was playing. I guess I didn't realize she was working.
And that was previously to any cotton pickers,
right? That it'd be about right then's when the cotton pickers kind of started coming on in out there, and of course the first cotton picker or cotton strip. They're called strippers in our area. Okay. We have stripper cotton. There's a story. They're in town in Sentinel that they all went out to see the first one, and it had, it's like they thought it was going to fall over because, and all this stuff. And so, it's a big deal. It's a big deal for that to come up. And of course, even when we moved to Sentinel, they let the ball team, the sports team would go out and stomp cotton in the cotton trailers for the farmers. To stomp of course that has changed because that's not how they do it now. So used to be they used to let out.
Machinery certainly has a way of changing the topography, the landscape of the people.
Yeah. I think the boys had better legs back then.
Yeah.
So is there still, or was there ever, a cotton manufacturing plant in Oklahoma City? What when was the cotton delivered to a factory in Oklahoma City, or was
I don't know. We take it to the gins. We have gins out there, and so you take it to the gin, and then they move it on. So I really don't. I didn't know I was going to have a test on cotton.
Well, we know nothing about
my husband in here for this one.
I'm going to extend this cotton story further into cotton feed sacks.
Yes.
And feed sack fabric. And Jackie and I had experiences with feed sack fabric being turned into clothing. But tell us about your experiences, Mary.
Well, that's just where the material came from, and we must have fed a lot of feed because those feed sacks followed us to Oklahoma City. And
of course.
And so, and like I said, Mom made all my clothes. I didn't have a store-bought dress till maybe 6th grade, 7th grade type thing. Now, not all of my clothes came from feed sacks the whole time, but so much of it did. And she just had these big piles of feed sacks sitting there that she'd sew from, and it's good material. Now, I never did sew with it. The only sewing I did really was for 4-H competition. And so I had to use the green gingham, to try to kiss it to the judges.
Did you have a part in selecting any of those feed sacks as far as what fabric you wanted to be wearing?
Obviously, no, because I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have picked some of them.
Did you have a favorite?
They're all pretty.
Yes. Did you have a favorite pattern of fabric?
I like the ones that had the little flowers on them.
Yes, I did too.
I like those kind.
Did your brother get to wear a shirt that maybe had guns and boots and ropes and horses?
Actually, he didn't have homemade clothes. Just me.
Oh,
not even a shirt.
Well, that I know of. Maybe he did. I didn't worry about him.
Okay.
Did your mom use the same dress pattern or skirt pattern every time with the feed sack fabric?
No. She was. My mother was a seamstress, a tailor. She was just fabulous at sewing. A Bernina, she had like 2 or 3 Bernina sewing machines, and when she blah 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 blah, and she was quite something. She expected me to love it as much as she did.
No,
didn't work out, huh?
Yeah.
But as an extension agent, though, you certainly did have to deal with clothing and sewing. And
hey, now you assume. Did you not read what my degree is in?
Animal science.
Now you're just like my mom. My mom called 3 months after I joined Extension. She was just sick. She said, I can't sleep. I can't believe you're the home demonstration agent. You don't like to cook. You don't like to sew. I said, Mom, I'm not the home demonstration agent. I am the 4-H agent. I am the first woman hired in Oklahoma. No, I'll take that back. I'm technically the second woman hired. First woman didn't work out. I'm the second woman hired in Oklahoma with an ag degree.
Okay.
And it was so rare that they even brought, there was 5 of us that applied when we were graduating. They brought us in, the head of the 4-H brought us in and told us we had no business being 4-H agents.
As women?
As women. Because they had this horrible, I don't know who she was, but she must have done something really good. You know, they tried a woman, it didn't work out. Anyway, the other 4 as they came out, they were crying. I just go in there and he's like, and I was like, okay, well, whatever, you know. It didn't shake me up at all, you know. And they finally got on 3 months later because nobody else would apply for that job. And so they put me on as a woman. And so you're looking at the trailblazing. I'd get letters from Oklahoma State saying that they were going to deny my travel because I had to room with one of the agents, you know. And you know, the agents were so sweet. They'd call and say, hey, Mary, I hear you need a roommate. I'd be glad to room with you. Stuff like that.
How does Mary feel about that?
Anyway, no, I came in on the ag side of things.
Okay, because our experience in our county is that this was a home. The 4-H youth education leader was a woman who was not an ag, so that she was more, you know.
Well, and we could be either way.
Set us straight. So, was there? Did you have a counterpart who did participate?
Yes. Well, I had a home demonstration. They're called family consumer science educators now or something, but the home ec agent.
Right. Okay. There were 2.
And I had fabulous ones, ones, good. But I could hold my own. I was a competitive sewer and not so much a cook, but I was a competitive sewer. So, you know, I could step in a pinch with workshops and stuff. So it was okay. It was okay.
Was there anything in your childhood that influenced you to be in animal science?
Maybe just being pulled off the farm, wanting to get back to that. I was very fortunate. We lived on the northwest side of Oklahoma City. And so my bus ran out into the country. And so I went to a huge school. So we picked up older kids. And there was a young lady that's 3 years older than me. And so she, bright red hair, wore a 4-H jacket, so she was always so nice, just so nice. And so whenever in 4th grade, when they announced that the 4-H meeting is going to be held in room 2, after, blah, 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 I go home. My parents never mentioned 4-H to me. I never heard of it. And of course, even, for a long time, they never even told me they were both 4-H members,
Oh.
And of course they said, sure, you can go, so I started in 4-H. Well, what was really cool about it is my 4th grade teacher. Now you gotta remember this Putnam City, which I had 1,000 kids in my class. Okay. So we're talking a huge school system. My 4th grade teacher, the first day of school, she looked out across the classroom and she looked at me and she pointed at me and she said, is your grandfather Norman Morris? Now you got to remember Norman Morris lived 2.5 hours to the west in the middle of nowhere, and I'm like, so I go home and tell my mom, so my mom goes up to school. She had taught my grandfather's big twin sisters at another town out there.
Oh.
I look like a Morris. And so she calculated who would have a granddaughter that age. And it had to be Norman Morris. Yeah, this is the lady I had as a 4th grader. She was probably a huge inspiration in my life, just amazing. She wrote my first 4-H demonstration and, just really, she was a big supporter of me being in 4-H and just that little connection, to something special that you don't get in a large city school system. And so anyway.
So what was that demonstration?
It was how to set a table. It wasn't my choice. See, everybody's trying to make me a home ec person.
Yeah, that's right.
Sweet little Mary, the homemaker.
That's right. That's right.
That's my degree.
Uh-huh.
Hey.
side of campus from you.
And Mary, coming from a small town, moving to the city, moving to Oklahoma City, as a 6-year-old, how did that impact your personality, your mentality? Just how did it impact your life?
It was horrible. And on top of that, we live on one of the busiest streets in that part of town. It's now 5 lanes, maybe even, and it was horrible. Couldn't run around. As I told you, I was on a Shetland pony every day.
Yeah.
Couldn't have my Shetland pony right there. It was horrible. I go to school. I don't know. I mean, of course, I went to kindergarten in Elk City, but this is a whole different deal. I go to, they put me on a bus, they take me away. It was horrible. I come home, my room was purple. That's the only, I love purple. Room was purple. I came home that first day from school. My room was pink. My mother had painted my room, had made me a bedspread, curtains, pink lights. She was so proud. I cried.
Dear.
But,
I take it pink is not your favorite color.
No. And and I was just used to running down to the neighbors, not even telling people where I was going, and the whole world changed then. The 4-H connection, getting into 4-H probably saved me. And I would go out to the smaller towns when I was a teenager and hang out with those guys and things like that. And started showing cattle when I was 16. That's what I got for my 16th birthday, is a show calf.
Oh, neat.
And so, just, I think maybe, that love of helping kids. We had a beef club in the county. We didn't have an FFA program in our school. And so, as a teen 4-H'er, I had to help the other little 4-H'ers. And, and I think that's where I got that love. And I wanted to be a 4-H agent.
I was going to ask you that question of you, because your life has been so devoted to the development of youth in Oklahoma, and it's something in your background probably instilled that love for teaching youth, and I think it's really kind of cool how it all came about in your life, Mary.
Well, you just don't know. And it's just like buying the newspaper that we bought it in August, and nobody wanted to buy the newspaper. It was going to shut down after 120 years. And, that was just sad. We got a really good banker.
What challenges have you found? I know this is getting beyond the 50s, but what challenges in your adult life in working in the marketing field, especially with developing the Ag Youth magazine and now buying the Sentinel Leader newspaper, what challenges in that publishing world have you found, and how has that changed over the years?
Well, that's a good question. You just got to be nice to people, and so really we haven't had a lot of challenges, as with any business, cash flow, is always a biggie, and that type of thing. And just keep it, somebody's got to do the books. That's no fun. That's not what I want to do. And things like that. So I have this desire, though, to make everything available to everybody. And so I have to beware. Sometimes that just vapor locks me, because I have to say, okay, we got to start somewhere. And so, but with Ag Youth magazine, we wanted to highlight the kids, not necessarily the grand champions or reserve grands, because, they get a lot of kudos. And of course you have to start somewhere. But the kids that don't normally get highlighted or their picture in the magazine and things like that. And so that type of thing. But what I was going to tell you about buying the newspaper is I did not realize, I never dreamed of buying a newspaper. Everything I've done in my life has filtered into running this newspaper, being a 4-H agent, youth development, publishing, the whole 9 yards. It was, who'd have thought that all this time I've been prepared to run the Sentinel Leader newspaper.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's very important. All those opportunities you give kids when they're little and stuff, all of it's important.
It is.
Mary, what was your Christmas like in the 1950s? In that
era? Red cedar tree,
cut one.
Oh yeah. There are weeds out here. They're horrible. And so red cedar tree, and of course the Christmas ornaments, decorating the Christmas ornaments and stringing the popcorn and that type of thing. Of course, then, I don't really remember, I know Santa Claus came, but to be honest, we were running from grandparent to grandparent, and things like that. To me, the holidays meant on the road, and they all live pretty close together. So it's like we had to go here, go there, go there, and so, but just seeing family, and at holidays and Christmas, especially, we saw every part of our family, which was great. And I really miss that now. We don't do that.
Yes.
Now. I really miss that.
Was there a special grandparent, a grandmother, grandpa, aunt, uncle who really influenced you when as a youth in any way?
Oh, they were both sets of my grandparents were extremely different. They were both my grandparents on my dad's side, the Reesdorfs. They were farmers, but my grandmother had taught school. And so she was probably more like, she gave me a camera, when I graduated kindergarten, and she was more interested in what I was doing, what I was doing and things like that. My grandparents on the other side, the Morrises, they had the general store. So when you went there, you worked, so, so he had grandma had the big deli counter with the big, logs of meat, and, people come in for the sandwiches. And they had the pot-bellied stove where they played checkers. I mean, I'm talking your typical general store. And so some of our, we swept the floor, and we had to check the packages for little holes for the bugs, and things like that. And the proudest I ever was I was little. They had the onion bin, right? The big onion bin with the onions, but they were messy. They're messy.
Oh, I don't know.
And if you peel off all that icky stuff, all the chattery stuff, they're smooth and shiny. They're pretty. I worked so hard. I peeled all the onions, and my grandpa was not happy.
Oh, I bet.
Do they last longer if that outside roughage is on them?
I assume they do.
Okay.
I still think about that every time I, go to do an onion. Thinking, okay.
Did your hands smell like onions for days?
Huh?
Did your hands smell like
I don't
onions
remember.
for days?
I don't remember, but I was proud,
And in that era, was there a soda pop machine?
Oh yes, and whenever they sold, the store burnt down, but he had replaced the old soda pop machine, so it was out in storage, and I wanted that so bad. And my dad, I didn't get to go to the auction, and I, Dad didn't understand how badly I wanted, but it was one of those big square cases where you slid them down the rail.
Yes.
Oh, I wanted that so bad. And so someday I'll track it down.
And then you had to take that bottle of pop over. You had to work it. And with little fingers, that was hard to do. You had to work it over to the spot where you'd have to pull it up through the metal area.
And then you had to get it open.
Yeah.
And what I guess my grandmother was always, she's a little bitty person, like 4'10", 11, little bitty lady. And so, of course, she was up early, doing breakfast and things like that. Grandpa would gather all the grandkids up and take them over to the store and give us pop and ice cream.
Why not?
So, remember him doing that and things like that. But, they were just workers, they just, I'm not saying my other grandparents weren't working, but it was just a different atmosphere at my grandparents. Now, both sets of grandparents had outhouses. They didn't have indoor plumbing till the 70s. And so that made me kind of unique, They're in the city having grandparents I hated, of course, there's nothing that needed to be kept about an outhouse.
And so was that the era of using the Sears catalog or the Montgomery Ward catalog?
No, we actually had toilet paper. So but we did have two holers. Both grandparents had two holers.
Wow.
Yeah. You could share the joy.
I guess.
Or the smell. Oh, gee, that's what I remember about it, is the aroma.
Well, and I was in band. I could hold my breath for a long time, and I bet it came from going to that.
What did you play in band?
French horn.
Oh,
which was really tricky because I'm not musical.
Well, you had to have big breaths, and you
I
met
did.
that challenge.
Mary, there are a couple of questions. We're nearing the end of our fun chat time. I'd like to ask our guests, and one is, what was the most fun memory you can remember of the 1950s?
Oh, that's because I was so little then. But just playing, just playing outside all the time. I was always hanging upside down off my, swing set. Of course, back then we didn't have a trailer. We had stock racks on the pickups.
Yes.
And stock racks are just awesome monkey bars. And so just climbing and playing and that's just freedom. I just had freedom in the 50s.
Sure.
That that I think I was very fortunate, to be alive.
Mm-hmm. And what from the 50s, I think you've covered it, but there might be something else, really influenced you as to the person that you are today?
Just, it's one of those things where I look back now and see, but I had a mother that was, I don't know if you all are familiar with the Church of the Firstborn, but that is a church that doesn't believe in doctors. And so, and so she married my dad, who was not a Church of the Firstborn. And so, number one, she married outside the church, and which that took, big guts to do. And then she ended up being a scrub tech for 25 years before she retired in the 60s.
Oh, what was that?
A scrub tech. She delivered babies at the hospital in Oklahoma City.
Oh.
And, and just looking back at her journey, she must have given me, it took guts, and I'm going to brag on myself. It took guts to be the first woman really to stick with it in extension, on the ag side, because it was tough. They weren't prepared for that. And so I think I got that from my mom, and I think she got that in the 50s, and she was defying things in the 50s, and that must have been influencing me.
Sure.
Type thing. Yes. And of course, my dad, he loves all kids, so he thinks everybody's going to be successful. So.
What a wonderful combination of parents, mother and father, and the
I had nothing holding me back, for sure.
That's good. Well, I can tell that your personality exudes that, and that's
and they were so excited when I drug little Mary Peck home from Clinton, Oklahoma. And I said, you're the ones who moved to Oklahoma City. Good Lord, look what I could have married,
Well, I think you got pretty good cream of the crop guy there.
I did.
Viewers, we thank you for joining us today. We've been chatting with Mary Peck from Sentinel, Oklahoma. She's just a wonderful story of her life starting in the mid to later 50s, and really how it metamorphosed beyond that. But the influence of that decade and that had on her life, for her to climb the ladder of success in her profession and really in her entire life. Mary, we thank you so much for being our guest today. This has been wonderful. And so, folks, until next week, we hope that you might kind of recall maybe some events of the 1950s in which you were involved. Did it have to be with listening to rock and roll music, or maybe you had a hot car, or maybe you were just learned the essence of freedom and what it was like to live in that decade. So we hope that you tune back in again with us next week. And Jackie, go ahead.
Before you do that, though, folks, do come back and please hit the red subscribe button and the blue icon, the blue thumbs up button, and tell your friends, even your relatives, about the 1950s Fun Chat. So until next time, toodaloo.